Elisa's Diary by Doris Louisa Aronos. Illustrated by Byron Ginn. Squirrels playing on the roof right above her room. They were sliding down a branch and leaping onto the roof tiles to gather acorns. Then they would scurry back to the branch and repeat the process over and over. Since there were no squirrels in Elisa's country, this was a new experience for her. She enjoyed watching the squirrels so much that when her vacation was over, Grandma bought her a squirrel figurine and put it on her night table. "It will be right here waiting for you when you come back to visit again." "I'll be back soon, Grandma. I love this place. Maybe someday I'll come and live with you." But that was then, and this is now. Who needs squirrels? She asked herself. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She was exhausted. It had been a long day that for some reason had gone slowly. That morning she had been in Puerto Rico, and now she was in the United States of America, except that this time, supposedly, it was forever. A tear rolled down her cheek and landed on the pillow. Elisa was 10 years old, and her brother Francisco was 12. At least if they were going to go to the same school, she would have felt protected, but they weren't. And of course, boys at that age typically don't want anything to do with their little sisters anyway. "He's unbearable," she thought aloud, just as her brother strolled into her room. "Who's unbearable?" asked Francisco. "You," answered Elisa, holding nothing back. "Oh? And why am I so unbearable?" asked her brother, sounding a little surprised. "Because you leave me alone all day while you're out running around having fun." "It's obvious that you're afraid to go out," answered her brother. "Look, I've met some neighbors, and they're nice." "And in what language do you speak to them, huh?" "Well, I speak to them in English," responded Francisco. "I can imagine the crazy things you come up with." Obvious. Something that is obvious is easy to see or understand. "But at least I try," retorted her brother. "What you have to do is make an effort. If they don't understand me, I talk with my hands until something happens. I write well in English, and when I read, I understand a lot. But now, when they speak to me, I don't understand a word." "Listen, the woman who lives in the house on the corner—" "Which one?" interrupted Elisa. "The one who gave me $2 to take care of her cat." "What about her?" "She told me that she used to listen to the news on the radio and got used to hearing English that way. Then, little by little, she understood English better and better." "I don't like the radio," declared Elisa. "Turn on the TV then. But not to those lovey-dovey soaps in Spanish and all that silly stuff you like." "What do you want me to watch then?" "Things from here, like baseball, football." "Football is brutal, and I despise sports." "Oh well, if you'd rather be ignorant." "Okay, forget it. I wish I hadn't even mentioned it." Elisa regretted ever having wanted to be in the same school as her know-it-all brother. She realized she'd have to solve her dilemma on her own, but she had no idea how. The summer came to an end, and the school year commenced. That's when she met Jose. At the end of that day, she wrote in her diary, "I met a student from Guatemala named Jose. He's very quiet, and he spends all his time with his head down, drawing in a notebook. He has sad, dark eyes. I thought he was going to talk to me once, but he didn't. He just smiled and kept on drawing." She read what she had written and added, "I think I'm going to like this school after all." The fact is that she didn't like the school one bit. On the second day of classes, the English teacher called her name, pronouncing it more like Alicia than Elisa. She rose from her desk, expecting a disaster, and that's exactly what happened. She was asked a question that she didn't understand, and when it was repeated, she comprehended even less. She was so nervous that she could only stammer a few syllables. Uh, 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 she couldn't comprehend it. If you comprehended something, you understood it. Continue, and she collapsed in her seat in front of those 40 faces. Her opponents, some disbelieving, some mocking. Elisa had never felt so embarrassed in her whole life. Around noon, when Jose's turn came, he stood up. He got up, and he spoke shyly of the customs and traditions of his country. He mentioned the quetzal, a bird with soft feathers, a green crest, and a red chest. He told how this gorgeous bird was the symbol of power for the Maya, and that today it is officially the national bird of Guatemala. Finally, he showed them a color drawing and told them proudly that the quetzal on the Guatemalan flag was an emblem of national liberty. The entire class applauded. Jose took his seat, and as always, he put his head down and went back to drawing. Officially. If something is done officially, it is approved by the government or someone in charge. In the afternoon, each student wrote a composition. Elisa wrote about her home, Puerto Rico. Like Jose, she described its customs and traditions and explained the symbolism of Puerto Rico's shield. A lamb, the emblem of peace and fraternity, appears in the green center. Above the lamb is a bundle of arrows, symbols of the creative force, and above the arrows is a yoke, which represents the joining of forces necessary to attain success. She thought it turned out pretty well, but writing was one thing and talking was another. That night she didn't open her diary because she had grown weary of complaining, even if it was only to her diary. The next morning, Elisa smiled for the first time since classes had started. She received a good grade on her composition. She wanted to show it to everyone so that they'd see that she wasn't so dumb, but she refrained from doing that. She thought maybe she'd show it to Jose, though. Yes, she decided she would show the composition to him. So during recess, she called to him and proudly showed him her paper. He looked at it, and lowering his eyes, he said with a fleeting smile, "Congratulations." "Thanks," said Elisa. "And how did you do?" "Okay." "No doubt you got an A, and you don't want me to be embarrassed." "No, it's not that, Elisa. It's that I picked up English by listening, on the street. I never took English in school. I write it like I hear it, and everything comes out wrong." Elisa read the paper that he handed her, and in one sweeping glance, she saw what he meant. She didn't know what to say. "But you speak English very well," Elisa tried to console him. "Speaking is one thing, and writing is another." "And vice versa," said Elisa. "And the opposite. And the other way around." They laughed so hard that the rest of the kids came over to see what was so humorous, but they didn't reveal their secret to anyone. That afternoon, they made a deal. She would assist him with writing, and he in turn would help her with pronunciation. 12 years later, Elisa was getting ready for work. She pulled down a box of shoes from the top shelf of her closet, and in the rush, several things cascaded down on top of her. One of them was her old diary. It fell open to the last page, and Elisa picked it up and read. "Today, I received my high school diploma. When I looked at myself in the mirror with my cap and gown and my gold honors tassels, I remembered the little girl who arrived here confused, scared, and sad. I'm happy now." She put away the notebook, got dressed, and headed for work. When she entered the classroom, her students looked at her, some shy, some confused, some scared. She saw those sad, preliminary first day of school expressions that she knew so well. She opened her lesson planner, considered it for a moment, and then shut it. She stood up and wrote on the board, "The joining of forces." Then she said, "I'm going to tell you the story of a quetzal that came down to the plain with the gentleness of a lamb, and a lamb that soared to great heights on the wings of a quetzal." Preliminary. Something that is preliminary happens at the very beginning of an event, or just before a main event.